Bonjour.
Vous m'entendez dans le haut-parleur? Oui, là, c'est bon.
Ah,
Tu
voilà.
nous entends, Frédéric?
Ouais, super, très bien.
Bon, c'est bon. On aura un micro pour les questions, et puis, enfin deux micros même, et puis Thomas a son micro-cravate normalement pour l'exposer.
Super,
Donc ça devrait aller.
merci.
Bon, il est quelle heure en Malaisie?
Là, il est 14h, 14h20.
Ah bah oui,
Voilà.
on en a bon, trois seulement. Non.
Et
Oui, parce qu'en
du coup, il y a un
Allemagne,
collègue
c'est
qui est en
pareil.
Australie, parce que je me suis posé la question.
Oui, Denis Calcophone, qui est rapporteur.
Ah, c'est ça,
Il
voilà.
est à Flinders, à
Ah oui,
l'université Flinders à Adélaïde. Euh, on a avec
Thank you very
nous
much,
Bruce
James.
Thomas et James Walsh, mais eux, ils ont fait le déplacement, donc ils sont ici.
d'accord. Ok.
La présidente Myriam, bah, tu dois pas, avec le point de vue, ils sont
Non.
juste un petit peu trop en arrière. Je sais pas si
D'accord,
on.
d'accord.
Voilà. Ah bah voilà, ils se lèvent. Ouais, parce qu'en fait, la caméra, c'est ça, c'est là-bas.
Ok. Oui, donc en
Myriam.
Australie, il est tard là, il est quoi? Il est 4, 5, il est 5 heures
D'accord.
l'après-midi là,
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Non, il est 8h30.
Ah, 8h du soir, oui,
Oui.
c'est des 12 heures. Ouais. Donc,
16h.
Donc,
16 heures. Ouais.
il y a quelqu'un d'Adélaïde qui se connecte? Deux. D'accord.
This is an international PhD defense.
Ok.
Les
Et puis
off.
vous êtes en Malaisie, c'est ça?
Voilà, moi je suis en Malaisie, oui.
J'ai pas le
D'accord.
prestige.
Bon. Tout est prêt?
Yeah, I just don't know if my mic is okay.
Is it sound okay?
Yep,
Ouais, c'est bon? Ok. Ça a l'air bon. Ça a l'air bon.
c'est parfait. Oui, moi,
Perfect. Yes, I see the WebEx thing.
Ok. Donc, on commencera par les rapporteurs, et puis après, vous aurez la parole. Monsieur Beren.
oui, merci. Très bien.
D'accord.
Non, bah voilà, j'en ai pris un autre. Si jamais il y a un souci pendant la visio, Frédéric, n'hésite pas à signaler, quoi.
D'accord, pas de souci.
Voilà.
Ça devrait être bon. De toute façon, il reste 10 minutes avant qu'on commence.
Oui.
Tout est prêt?
Oui, tout est prêt. Oui, oui.
Ça va
On
aller?
a fait les tests techniques hier, tout fonctionne. Et je suis serein.
C'est parfait. Ah, et là, quand même.
Non,
C'est
éventuellement,
la conclusion.
petite angoisse, Pierre, si tu peux peut-être aller voir du côté de l'accueil, si tu attends de voir les gens qui cherchent où venir. Non, mais tu as le droit de rester là.
On prendra les micros peut-être juste au moment des questions.
Ouais, ça marche.
Donc à tout à l'heure.
Ouais.
De façon à ce que Myriam, on est toujours. Non, alors il y a le mute là, et puis on va le remettre à charger, comme ça on est sûr que pendant les questions, tout va bien. Ouais, tu nous en voir même les trois.
Bah oui, je vous ramène les trois au moment des questions.
De façon à ce que Myriam puisse toujours garder le sien et qu'on en fasse passer.
Ça marche. Benjamin. Ok, 22 minutes. Je suis connecté, ça retransmet. Live stream. Seems ok. Si j'ouvre ça. Yes! Coraline saves the day. Incroyable. Non, les plans. Thomas Rinner. Ouais. Merci beaucoup, Coraline. Je sais pas si tu veux un exemplaire imprimé, Thierry. Il y a go Bruce, Myriam. Tiens, Cédric. Ça marche, je veux bien. Je te nomme administrateur du coup, enfin animateur. Pas maintenant. Merci. Ouvrir le panneau des participants. Où est-ce qu'il s'ouvre le panneau des participants? Ok. Ah oui, si c'est ça que je voulais faire. Tac. Autorisé.
Hello.
Hello, Dennis.
Ah,
It's a pleasure to have you there.
one second. Now it should work. Can you say something?
Yes. Can you hear me clearly?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. We still have 3 minutes. Oh, Cédric. Et maintenant, Cédric. Donner le rôle d'animateur. Ouais. Je suis plus animateur, mais je peux quand même partager. Écran 2, partager. Ok. Ah ouais, pourtant, attends, je rouvre. Cédric, donner le rôle d'animateur. Je suis plus l'animateur. Ah, mais si je suis plus l'animateur, j'ai plus le droit de partager. Mais je peux te nommer organisateur. Ça marche, ça avait marché avec Thierry. Ouais, voilà. Bon.
C'est juste que je puisse accepter s'il y a des gens qui arrivent. J'accepte tout le monde normalement.
Oui, bien sûr. Il y a des gens du labo en Australie qui vont se connecter par WebEx. Mm. Ok. Yes. I gotta cut my phone. Tac. Will do. Paf. Chronomètre minuteur. Ouais, je vais voir si tout va bien. Ok. Ouais. Oh oui, oh, j'ai hâte. Ouais. J'en ai trop en rab. Je vais le regarder. Je vous enlève ça. Il est mignon. Tu peux dessiner des smileys et tout. Voilà. Attends, voilà, tu t'es plaint. J'ai cru t'entendre te plaindre, comme quoi il n'y a pas les remerciements.
Il y a le numéro de page dans les annexes. Le nombre des questions.
Bah, c'est les annexes, hein. J'ai un peu tout dump à la fin, quoi. Là, je crois que t'es encore dans une annexe, là, hein, la page 200. 100, 130, 150. J'ai pas le droit. Il faut attendre là. Ok. So we're pretty much ready to begin. Gudrun, could you hear us okay? I believe so.
One second, I think she disappeared.
Mm-hmm. So we are just waiting for the last jury member to connect to the WebEx meeting, and I'll start right after.
Good morning.
Good morning, Gudrun. Could you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry. Somehow the system wasn't connecting, but now I'm all there. All yours.
Thank you. Okay.
We're good.
Good
Hello,
morning.
everyone. Okay. So we are here to hear Mr. Rinner presenting his PhD on perceiving collaborative activity with extended reality. With the jury of here is with Mr. Duval, which is professor here in EMT Atlantic. Bruce Thomas, professor at University of South Australia. James Walsh, which is Enterprise Fellow in University of South Australia. And remotely, Frédéric Marian, professor at Arts et Métiers Paris Tech. Gudrun Klinger, professor at TUM. Denise Kartoffen, assistant professor in Flinders University. And we have also Gilles Copin here, professor at the EMT Atlantic. And as invited, Mr. Cédric Fleury, assistant professor here in EMT Atlantic. And I am Myriam Servière, professor at École Centrale. So, Mr. Rinner, you have 45 minutes to present your work, and then we will follow by questions.
Thank you. So, as you say, I'm here to present my work on how to improve collaborative work by sharing user status. So to bring a bit of context on my research, I'd like to address different kinds of collaboration at once, focusing on the perception of the of any collaborative activity in XR-enhanced environments. So that means that could address fully collocated collaboration with equal level abilities and skills, but it does also concern physically remote members or teams that are fully or partially distant from each other, and even more complex teaming with a notion of hierarchy, with the team leaders and their workers. So the goal in that is to support the team overcome the distant issue and to improve mutual understanding between team members. So with this, we could tackle limitation of the real world, like we could see in recent events with the pandemic, where we had to work remotely from each other, and that also offers applications to several domains, such as industry of the future, defense, health, and even education. So the main challenges in doing that is that we have to acknowledge that we can miss implicit cues. By implicit cues, I mean you can miss someone having a facial expression showing frustration, fatigue, stress, and because people are most often focused on their task, on the collaborative activity, they often miss these implicit cues. So missing those kind of cues could hinder the activity and eventually even fail the collaborative task in its whole. So we have to keep in mind that working with XR environments and working with potentially physically distributed teams, we have to overcome the gap between being physically present and being remote. But we also have to go further. We also have to use XR to offer ways to collaborate even better than in a physically collocated workspace without XR. So to do so, I have two main research directions. The first one would concern the collaborator status. So there is a real challenge here in defining, measuring, and even presenting such status in order to go into a more empathic computing. By that I mean programming things, knowing that we have humans behind. So the definition of collaborator status is like the combination of performance, physiological measures, and even abstract data such as feelings or emotions. So yeah, my research during my PhD was focused on presenting such status rather than spending too much time on defining and measuring it. And I also want to do a small point on performance. Performance is a very complex notion and it's highly context dependent. So the pro of using an experimental context is that we can know and control the definition and measurement of performance. So again, we can focus on presenting it rather than gathering it. So in my research, I had three main research questions. The first one is about how we could improve XR collaboration by sharing user status. The second is addresses which elements could help a team leader to understand their team members and what the best way to present such information. And the third research question addresses the abstraction of the information. How should we abstract data for people to better understand it? So to do so, before presenting my work, I'll just run a quick state of the art for us to be on the same page on what we are talking about, and then I present my research. So in the state of the art, we have three main fields involved in my research. Extended reality is the technical solution we want to use to improve collaboration, which is the goal. So we have to know what's have been done in the XR research field and what are the leads in the collaboration field to improve it. And what we found is that there are ways to improve the XR collaboration, focusing on the human perceptions and the notion of awareness. Notion of awareness, which is a theoretical aspect that I am contributing to in my work research. And this is a complex notion. There are several ways of defining it, representing it. And here we have three examples of how the notion of awareness can be represented. So in this first one, this is a set theory-based representation with everyone having a focus bounding. And when a focus bounding interact with an aura binding, there is interaction, and thus awareness creation. You can see someone if you focus on him. There are also another way of characterizing awareness. You could sort information based on the level of concern they have. If you have an information of an object, can I move it? Can I manipulate it? This is the lowest level of awareness, knowing that. But knowing how the social group works, knowing how the systems in the environment, in the workspace, work and be handled, this is the highest level in this taxonomy. And the last one focuses more on the interaction and how we gather awareness, and it's pretty well summarized. Awareness information is basically the information you get when you ask the who, what, when, how, and where questions. So I've done a synthesis of the definitions I could find on awareness. The most simple one is the knowledge created through interaction between an agent and its environment, which is pretty much general. But we also find really often the term workspace awareness, and it tends to be defined as the up to the moment understanding of another person's interaction with the shared world. And it's also the set of cognizance that is required to operate or maintain a system. So you might notice in my manuscript, I often label all those definitions under the term of awareness of collaboration. This is the awareness information we need to improve collaboration. And still looking in the literature, there are lots of ways to create awareness, but it can all be summarized under a simple term. This is perceptual feedback. It can be audio, it can be video, it can be any other modality. As long as you get perceptual information, you create awareness at several levels. So investigating the limitations of the state of the art to know where to begin with. We found that the research community is still exploring a long-established limitation. By that I mean, since 2002, we already knew that we did not generate enough perceptual information in XR environments to fully recreate reality. So we still had that gap, this difference between virtual worlds and the real world. But the most important limitation is that we don't even present the information we already have. So in the years, things have a bit changed. On the first part of the main limitation, when it comes to generating more information, there have been great research on new hardware and new computing methods. There are still work to do, but I chose to focus on presenting the already available information, because since 2002, we have new ways of gathering them. And now the question is more, how should I present such information? Should I present all of it? Should I present only a subset? Which are the most relevant? And yeah, I see that through my research. I started with one-on-one collaboration, simple basics. This is why I wanted to study the smallest scale of collaboration. Right after, I extended it to teamwork with a team leader and a team of workers, the team leader having tasks to assign to his team. And as a last step, I also investigated proposing a future prediction of the status evolution. We'll get back to it a bit later in the presentation. So I'm going to start with the collaboration, the one-on-one collaboration part of my research. So as I was saying, I chose to present information, but when it comes to presenting information, you still have a lot of questions. Where should I place this information? Where should I place this other? And how to present it? What abstraction level should I use? Should I propose raw data or abstract it behind symbols? And it tends to be, literature suggests to use a situated literal presentation. By that, they mean having the information directly placed in the workspace and having it presented as raw as possible. If you have a measure, a real number measure, show the real number measure. But in my case, I'm working with XR environments, so it was kind of obvious we would situate certain information inside this workspace. But the question is more, where in the workspace should I place my information? So I'm more addressing a grouping question that's actually a placement. Should I gather all information in one place, or should I distribute information pieces next to the relevant elements? And yeah, for the presentation, even if literature says literal is best, I wanted to investigate some other abstraction levels. So with this first piece of work, I addressed the first research question, and I wanted to know how could we create augmentations to improve the collaboration. We wondered if sharing user status enhances the detection and characterization of a need for help, and if our indicators would be useful to detect and characterize a need for help. So my first visualization proposition is to propose a user status panel. So as you can see, there are 4 different parts in this panel. The first one is the identification one. So you can know what the rest of the panel who the rest of the panel is linked to. You have color, image, name. So to keep it literal and symbolic at both times. The second one is the task activity panel, task status. You have information on the collaborative task. We might get on the detail of the icons later. But what we can notice is that we have numbers to keep it literal. We have icons and progress bars to have some symbolism brought in it. So the icon shows the current state of a part of the system, and the progress bar shows how much time it was in a good state and how much time it was in a bad state. And yeah, then we have the measured data, which represent the physiological measure we can gather through equipment. And the users, what I call user status here is measures you can't directly get. You have to abstract physiological ones, task performance ones, and by that I mean workload, fatigue, stress, frustration. Those are not measures you can get directly from someone. Yeah. So I first ran a pilot study to know where to place this information panel in the workspace. And we've seen that people were not taking the effort to get distracted from their collaborative task to go and fetch for a panel somewhere in the workspace. So it was better if the panel was directly in their site at any time. And in terms of collaborative working, we saw that the dynamic distribution of task responsibility, if anyone can do any task at any time, it became complicated to measure who is helping who and to differentiate that from who is reallocating a task from a collaborator. So it kind of blurred the measure we wanted to make. So we stay with a static responsibility of tasks for our experiment, sorry. So this was a simple 1x2 within participant study with only one factor, the presence of an activity panel. As you can see on the image, we've only evaluated the task status one as a first of the investigation. And yeah, we collected performance measure. We also collected subjective measures through questionnaire to have participant preferences to compare icons, bars, presence or absence of the activity panel. And we had 4 hypotheses starting the experiment. The first one was that if we share task status, that would improve the overall task performance. And the second one suggested that we could also improve the mutual support occurrences. A collaborator would help more with task status panel. The third hypothesis was in the suggests that people would prefer icons to bars in terms of activity feedback. By that, I mean they would prefer having an instantaneous measure of what's happening rather than having a history of how it's gone until now. And the last hypothesis is that people would more easily detect that a collaborator needs help with indicators. And we'll see in the results how it came out. So for experimental purposes, we needed a collaborative task. So we also wanted a challenging task, not something too simple. So we started from the NASA MATB2 system, which is a task battery asking to operate 4 main tasks and 3 subtasks at the same time. It was used to train pilots with handling workload at the NASA. And with Jamie Gower, PhD students back in Adelaide at UniSA, he gave me a single user version of his VR adaptation of MATB2, and I turned it into a collaborative one. So as you can see, we have the system monitoring task, which is a task you just have to check if everything stays in their normal state. If they go out of this state, you just have to put them in back. So we just measure the reaction time here. The tracking task is a more continuous one that triggers. When it triggers, you have a few seconds where you have to keep a target at the center of a frame. The communication task is the same, that it sometimes triggers, and when it triggers, you have to tune some radios and validate your choice. And the resource management one is a fully continuous activity where you have to balance fluid tanks. So developing this experimental platform, when we developed this experimental platform, we ran the pilot studies I was talking about at the same time, and with the same argument of people not focusing on the activity panel or did not use it at all, we separated the battery in two to also show the task responsibility of each user. Separate the task user. Yep, and that's pretty much all of it. So we had a participant and an experimenter to collaborate on such activity, and we could not validate the first two hypotheses. That means we did not improve performance or help occurrences by sharing the task status of the collaborators. However, we find out that giving information on the task status significantly enhances the detection of need for help. As you can see right there, this is a graph from the participant feedback at the end of the experiment. So yeah, with activity panels, they were more able to detect a need for help. And when they were asked if they wanted, what they preferred between icons and progress bars, in other words, if they would prefer continuous information to history information, they would definitely prefer instantaneous information. They did not have time to analyze an history one. So yeah, the kind of the bonus outcome of this first experiment was that I now had an experimental demonstrator that I called MadeB2 Collab that can create collaborative XR environments between remote members and allow multi-user interaction on the MadeB2, which is a well-known system in science research. We demonstrated this tool between a French-Australian collaboration. Even once, it was at the crossing, it was between IMT Atlantic and the Crossing Lab in Adelaide. And it was in front of Antoine Petit, the CNRS CEO, and he really enjoyed it. And of course, this tool is extendable, and I extended it through my research work. That we'll get to it. So yeah, the second part of my research is on the team management. We now have a more complex teaming setting. So yeah, teaming is a bit more complex than one-on-one collaboration because some tasks require leadership and organizational skills. So to improve performance, team leaders need to understand the empathic states of the member. They have to understand how they are feeling, how they are doing. And this already has been done in recent research with AR feedback information. So yeah, to share a team status to their leader, we have several ways of doing that. We can share the task status. We can share their physiological status. And yeah, it's really important to understand the actions and behaviors of a team member for the team leader to make better decisions, to have a broader range of information when making decisions. So this is why we asked ourselves, does providing information about a team member's stress status and its current workload help a team leader to manage a team? I mean, to check that what is said in the literature is accurate and applies to our applicative context. And also, we wanted to know which AR visualization was most effective in helping team leaders to understand the status of their members. So to do so, I propose two different visualization of the same information. On the left, you have the literal information, which is all numbers, words, and a slight bit of a color. We'll get back to it. And on the right, you have a symbolic presentation of that same information. If we take the task queue, which represents the amount of work someone has to do before being able to take a break. On the left, we have numbers, basic numbers with task names on top of it. And on the right, we have cubes with the initial of the task it represents. Again, for the task completion, we have just a percentage on the literal view and progress bars on the symbolic view. The same goes for the history or the portion of time working. And we can also notice that for the score and success, we have pie charts instead of a detailed percentage of success and failures and how good the worker is performing. And the last one is about stress, which I was talking about the inner status, how well this worker feels. So if we get a closer look to the stress indicator, we can notice that in both we have colors to keep it equivalent to for the color not to be something that distinguish one visualization from another. And it basically represents stress levels. So yeah, with a green color, we have a low stress situation, with a yellow one, a medium stress situation, and with a red, either number or trace on the graph. This means that the worker is overstressed. What do I mean that? It's because for experimental purposes, instead of hiring eight people and paying them, train them, and cross our fingers that their performance was invariant from one experiment to another, we modeled and implemented an operator model. Operators are simple workers doing work based with animations and anything, and they have one particularity that their performance in work directly depends on their stress. The more stressed they are, the more likely they are to fail a task and just perform badly in it. So as you can notice, this is not a linear function to determine how prone they are to failure, but with a low stress situation, you are practically sure that an operator will perform completely well their task. And with a high stress, I won't take the bet that someone would be able to complete a task completely with no errors. So yeah, new experimental setting for this second part of work. We wanted that a participant would act as a team leader, assigning work to do to a team of 6 operators. So virtually controlled operators, of course. And we measured, our two main measures was that the team score and the time to the team score, which is performance, and the time to complete all the tasks, because sometimes time is at stake. So it was a good measure. Yeah, and we had 2 main hypotheses with this work. The first one was that providing operators with providing the team leaders with stress with the operator stress feedback would improve the global team performance. And the second one was that team leaders would prefer the symbolic presentation of the information, because at least in the pilots, the quick pilots we ran before this study, people were more keen to appreciate the symbolic indicators. So the good thing is that we could validate the first two hypotheses with the results of this experiment. By that I mean when we shared in a status, when we shared stress of the operators to the team, to the participant, the team reached better performance, as you can see on the rightmost bar chart, box chart, sorry. And we had a weird observation is that people actually prefer the symbolic presentation of information, but their team reached better performance with the literal information presented. So yeah, the outtake of this research was that we should propose literal information, maybe accompanied with abstraction for better comprehension and appreciation, but the literal information is important. So next, on my last piece of work for my PhD, we kept the same collaborative setting, one manager and few workers to monitor. But this time we will provide a prediction of their inner status evolution, of their stress evolution. So predicting the status evolution has already been done in research, whether it is stress, whether it is fatigue, whether it is cognitive workload, and it's done by, most of the time it's done by gathering physiological measures and aggregating this with artificial intelligence. So we were rather focused on presenting it. Like I said in the beginning, the gathering is doable. Let's ask ourselves how to present such information. So we had two research questions for this piece of work. That sharing a prediction of the evolution of a team member status with XR would help their leader to efficiently balance the workload. And with this last piece of work, we also address the abstraction topic. What is the best abstraction? What is the best complexity of information to be understood well and to be the most useful? So for that, we designed and implemented a new visualization. So we chose to create a halo at the behind the head of the workers, and we could have done so many things. VR is very, very permissive, but we sticked with AR-like visualization to keep our work extendable or applicable to any other fields within the XR range. So this halo represents the inner status. So in our case, the stress, which is mostly a placeholder because virtual workers don't actually become stressed. This is because the model says so. You have the inner disk that represent their current stress, the rightmost point on the graph on the previous experiment, or the printed percentage on the previous history. So this only displays the current measure. We have the future stress, which represent how much stressed an operator will be after finishing the tasks they still have to do. As depicted in the task queue. On this example, operators still have 2 tasks to do before being able to rest. And the tested stress, which is the outer ring, appears only when a team member begins to assign a task when he grabs a task artifact in the VR environment. These rings showed up and explain how much stress how much the future stress would change if you were to assign this task to an operator. and for the abstraction investigation, we had an opposition, a comparison of having only 3 levels of stress, like in the previous experiment, or having 5, adding intermediary levels to have more granularity and to have, let's say, a simple abstraction and a less simple abstraction. I mean, 5 levels are still pretty simple. So for the experimental design, we used the exact same settings with just a bit of an update on the status indicators, just as I showed you. I only also had a bit more complexity in the settings, having easy and hard task. The hard task taking twice as much time as an easy task to be performed, and thus create twice as many stress. We still measured the team score and the trial duration as a performance indication. And yeah, this time we compared the 2 factors. We had a 2x2 within participants experiment, comparing the presence of stress prediction and the numbers of stress level. I'm just gonna go here and show you a quick video on how the tested stress appears. So as you can see, when I grab task, we have the outer ring showing how the current status of an operator would work. And yeah, when I assign the task, you could see that the first future stress, which was originally yellow, became red because I assigned a task to this operator. Let's show. These are my nodes. So yeah, the result of this experiment could validate both of our hypotheses, which was that we could that providing a prediction of the stress would improve team performance. It's not that obvious, but yes, on the box charts we have on the right, we see that with prediction of stress, we reach better performances. And the same goes with the numbers of abstraction levels. With 5 levels of stress, we also reach a better performance. And on top of that, participant feedback in the end of the experiment questionnaire strongly supported the idea that having 5 levels of stress is preferable. So I'm now down to the conclusion of my presentation. Just a quick reminder, I started with one-on-one collaboration with providing people with information status on their wrist. And it was the first implementation of the experimental platform. We then went into the investigations with a team scale, with a team leader having to assign tasks to a team of workers, and we then investigated prediction of status evolution. So with the first piece of work, I ended up publishing a journal article in multimodal technologies and interaction. And for the for the team management research and experimentation, we published an article in the Applied Science journal. And for the last one, the research on prediction of the status evolution, we have a project to publish the results in the IEEE VR conference. And of course, the experimental platform I used and extended through my research is completely available, open source, on my GitHub page. So this is more technical contribution, but still noticeable. So I'm just gonna talk a bit on the future work that could pursue my research. At short term, we could improve the tools I've implemented during my research. By that I mean we could integrate more various sensors to have actual physiological measures with the platform, or we could use artificial intelligence to also interpret the more complex one, as I was talking about, the fatigue, stress, and even feelings. It has been done in the literature. It can be added to my experimental platform. In the longer term, in medium term, by that I mean maybe 1 or 2 year project, we could refine the operator model and extend a bit the experimental platform to have a more realistic experimental environment, even though the generosity of having a collaborative MATB2 was pretty convenient for the research I conducted. But we could also investigate on better ergonomics for the indicators, for my icons and everything. I tried to make them look good, but a complete research process on the best indicators we could provide would be appreciable. And on the longer term, we could pursue this research by continuing the investigation on the most intelligible abstraction levels of each dimension of the user status. And we could even explore the different multimodal approaches we could use to convey such information. Because as you might have noticed, I mainly use the visual channel to give feedback of information, because I want it to be as generic as possible, to consider noisy environments. But yeah, maybe some other modalities added or replaced could improve such work. So yeah, in terms of society impact, this research could lead to new and better team management practices. By that I mean, we saw that contributing to the well-being of workers could lead to a better team performance. So this could shift toward a more empathic team management, teamwork, which would be definitely valuable in situations where performance with minimal errors is crucial. I can cite the defense application field, but even in health, I mean, you don't want a surgeon to miss something. And we could also improve the current industry mechanism by using such indication to accompany people through a process of change, or even in training. We could train people, or at least we could monitor trainees to see if they understand what they are doing. And of course, applying my research to a concrete industrial use case would definitely unveil some limitations we might have missed, and of course, create the opportunity for great research. So we've reached the conclusion of my presentation. And now I'm fully available to answer all of your questions. Might have been quick by 1 minute.
Thank you very much for your presentation. You're right in time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We will now start the question part. And as we are a large jury, we may try to constrain ourselves in a 15 minutes each. And we will start with the reviewers. And usually we start with the one who's farthest away. So maybe Mr. Kouthoven from Flinders. And then we will go
Thank you. Okay. So, again, how do we do this? Everyone has 15 or 15 minutes. Did I get this? How much time do I have?
Yeah, 15 each.
Okay. Do we go in circles or do we go, and do I have a second round or do I have to ask all my questions now? Can I ask questions about other questions? That's my question.
Yes, absolutely, you can.
All right, good. Okay, then I start and then we go on and then I may come back. All right. So before I start, I would like to congratulate you. I really enjoyed your presentation. It's nice, very interesting to me. I would like to go through the papers you published and then conclude with general questions. Okay, so let's start with the first paper. You mentioned you were targeting one-on-one collaboration, right? So you have one person and the other person can see what they are, what their status is. That's how you call it. My question is, what would stop you to actually apply it to a one-to-many collaboration? Is there anything that restricts you to scale it down to a one-to-one collaboration? Or could you also have like several people in the entire setup?
I might not hear it great. So you are asking if it is extendable to
Yes.
more people
Exactly.
collaboration?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. For experimental purposes and simplification of data gathering, we kept it to 1+1 collaboration. But in the early developments, we had a team of 4 workers on the battery, each one with a task. But yeah, our applicative context could not handle more than 2 people. But yeah, the idea is that the status panel we evaluated just grows in terms of size with users
That's what I
connecting
thought.
it. So
Okay.
yeah, it's completely extendable. But I'm pretty sure that beyond a certain number of people, the activity panel would become too large. Maybe let's say 5 or 6 people. It might be more confusing rather than informing. So we might have to think about maybe distribution this time, because with more people, the collaborators might take the effort into going to the fixated panel and check the status of everyone.
Yeah, okay, that's exactly what I thought. With an increasing amount of collaborators, you get too much data and then it eventually becomes cluttered and you need to pick lightly what is the most important data that you will show. And that's my next question. So you have measured data, you have activity, you have user status, you have a dummy head representation. I have it here on my other monitor. That's the benefit of being remote, so I can just read it. My question is, there's a lot of information. Let's say you scale it up to 10 people and you need to pick the most important of this information. From your experience, what would you say is the most important of this information?
Staying on the first status panel, right?
Yes, exactly.
I believe I would just leave icons because, as participants said, they prefer instantaneous information. And I might have not said it in my presentation, but the icons were fading from white to red to show how much big of an issue the status of the task was going. And I'd say that when someone takes responsibility of a task, you have these task icons appearing in their panel, and the rest of the task study would be hidden. Because we might not see on this slide, but if we get back a bit, here, I don't know if I can zoom in. I
Mhm.
can't, apparently. Yeah, so during the experiments, we actually hidden the status information that was not of a concern. You only had the task people were responsible for. So in extending it, the more people share the task, the more place you have on this display panel. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that it would be a big of an issue. I mean, the identification part of the panel
Mhm.
would be what takes most place and might need to be redesigned.
Okay, okay. I would actually guess the faces. Super. What is, and there, I have a follow-up question. What was the idea of the dummy face in your presentation?
What is the idea of what? Sorry.
Mhm.
I didn't hear.
Why did you include a red-blue dummy face?
Oh.
There's a face of the user.
Yes, let's get back to it. Here, I put it a red face because I wanted for the feedback to be as exhaustive as possible, and when assessing literature and when getting back to the awareness, taxonomy, and characterization, the identification of someone is really important, and I wanted to use as much modality as possible, still saying on the visual one. So we have an image to link the panel to an avatar in the workspace. We have to have a name if you want to call him. And
Okay,
yeah,
I get it.
we also have a disk with color for each member.
Right. In a real world application, you could actually use the user's face, and that could change over time. So I'm guessing it's just for the output.
Yeah, and it could also be a shared point of view of them. We could see what they see on this part instead of a picture. We could see a 3D recreation of their head, of their face.
That's actually what I thought, that this could be super useful. All right, I think I need to watch my time. Let's go to the second paper. In the second paper, you changed the setup. You had a leader, and the leader was managing the team by assigning tasks. Right? And you presented the stress threshold to the team leader, right? And you had these blue, red, yellow thresholds. They were you basically built them. How did you come up with this thresholding? This one exactly.
Yeah, we wanted to use a sigmoid function which starts with slow increase and end up until 1. But mostly what we wanted is a nonlinear behavior. We wanted to guarantee that if someone is in a low stress situation, they would succeed in their task, they would perform well. And if we had a linear thing, it would have been more confusing and a more personal choice to say what threshold differentiate low stress from medium stress.
Okay. Do you think the thresholding has an impact on your results?
Sorry, I have a bad audio here. So do I think the threshold?
Sorry, I speak closer to my microphone. Do you think the thresholding had an impact on your results? If you color code red, green, and I think it was yellow, and red is immediately causes tension.
I believe so, yes. And this is why actually I have colors in both presentation, because if we wanted to compare a literal presentation to a symbolic one, and we had color in only one of them, we would have the color be a factor impacting things. But because we have colors in both stress presentation,
And this
Well,
is
yes, we kept it invariant. We kept it common. Maybe the color on the stress history is slightly noticeable in yellow. I should have taken a screenshot with red or green. But the thing is, participants in this first experiment mentioned to me that when they had the literal presentation, they were only looking at the colored percentage. So
okay.
this is the most important thing, and again, that confirms what we find out in our first experiment. People are more focused on current status information rather than having a full history, because as you can see on the literal stress presentation, you have the first line showing the current stress and the other lines showing an history on which levels this operator went through in time.
I think I get it. I have one more question about the interaction and if you can actually automate it. Did you interview the team leaders? What kind of strategy they used to assign tasks with the visualizations?
I did. I kept it out of this presentation, not to take too long today. But yeah, of course, we analyzed the strategy participants used to assign tasks. And if I remember well, the most used was that people would assign tasks to the least stressed operators, which actually led to the best performances. And they
So
also.
Thank you.
So,
my question is actually, can you automate the whole process if the team leaders follow a certain strategy, and you could actually think of an order? Because when I see your video, it looks like the interaction still takes some time, and the team leader can still make mistakes and overlook some stress level or so. So did you ever think of automating the process based on the interviews? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Of course, we could have, but I didn't want to go this deep. Just missing one sec on it. We could actually take the feedback on the participants' strategies, take the most efficient ones, and create either an assistant, either a fully automated operational system assigning tasks to a team. But I personally believe so. Human judgment might still be better in a lot of considerations. But maybe a well-developed either AI or operational system could create a healthy environment, but that might remove the team leader's role, that might reduce the number of people working. That's actually a very good question, because this is one of the openings of my PhD. What if we bring AI in it? Because as you might have noticed, my operator model is very simple. I want to keep artificial intelligence for other people as for now. I mean, but yeah, this is a great suggestion, automating this process.
All right, I need to watch my time. Third paper, you use disks for representing the stress, and disks grow in size. Exactly, yeah. Did you test any other visualizations and any other geometry? I see you tested several combinations of colors so that you can actually increase the number of the levels that you can present. That's good. But I was wondering if you also tested other geometry and disks.
Actually, yes. We tested changing the color of the halo around the avatars of workers, but it seemed to be not it seemed to be not that much noticeable. We also thought about changing the geometry of the avatar itself, like inflating the head when an operator became stressed. But as I was saying, this is a very VR way of creating feedback, and in augmented reality, it would have become really hard to inflate a real person's head on top of his, because we only have semi-transparent. No, I'm saying wrong thing. We have video see-through HMD, so we could have done this, but the Halo seemed the most straightforward thing. At the end, we had like a bar, exactly a progress bar on top of the head of operators, like a health bar in video games. But still, it was not that much noticeable when we placed it next to this big halo right behind the head of operators.
All right, thanks a lot. One last question about the general view of this research. I like it a lot. I think it's super interesting. But I would still like to ask about the downsides. So to me, everything sounds great, and the next factory of the future should equip their people with any kind of sensors, right? First question, do you think this is practical today, or does it need 5+ years? You didn't really touch on the sensors, on how to acquire that. And second question in that context, what do you think are the downsides if I measure everything from all the workers and feed them to my team leader in real time?
Yeah, so obviously, like I was saying, there is a privacy issue on the information we share. So I'm pretty happy that in our experimental context, we did not share human physiological data or inner status. We kept it straight. But yeah, when applying this work to real world, we have to address the privacy issue. Is it good to share, let's say, the heart rate, let's say the skin conductivity, let's say the humidity of the skin of someone? This indeed raises ethic issues about privacy. But the most promising lead to get out of this issue, to overcome this issue, is actually the last experiment, because we provided a prediction of the inner status, which, first of all, is not actually sharing the current status. So this is slightly less invasive, but even that, participants actually preferred having the prediction rather than the current status. And as we were discussing just a few minutes ago, we could automate that system and just hide all this information from the team leader and just create alarms saying, wait, this worker is going through a bad time.
Yes.
So just focus on the others. And yes, as for now, this is very broad, this is very extreme sharing. But yeah, this was the first steps into uncovering what is best to share, what is best to show. And yeah, of course, some kind of AI filter or just a computing system to filter all this information and only bring up information when it's relevant. Let's say someone is not working from several minutes there, you give a feedback that this operator is completely rested, you can give work to him. And on the opposite, this one has having so much on his head, just leave him quiet, leave him alone for a few minutes. So yeah, of course, we have to address this issue.
100% agree. All right, I think my time is up already by 2 minutes. I may have a chance to come back, but I would like to pass on to Gudrun should be next. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Now we can go to the second reviewer comments and question. Mrs. Klinger. We don't hear you.
Gudrun, are you still there? I believe it's your turn for your question if you have. I don't have video nor audio coming from Gudrun. I reckon Gudrun, you might just be muted.
So we will wait for Mrs. Klinger to come back, and we
Yeah,
will
sure.
continue with Mr. Merian remotely.
Yes.
Okay, so shall I begin? Oui? Yeah. So thank you for your presentation, and I want also to thank you for the quality of your thesis, the manuscript. It was very pleasant to read, and hopefully it was not so big big manuscript. It was well concise, so it was nice to read. And I also want to thank the co-supervisor for inviting me to be part of this jury. This work is very interesting for me, with lots of interesting topics and lots of perspective, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some questions, of course. I will begin with the assignment to the task. So,
yep.
So you propose the leader to assign several tasks to several operators, and of course, depending on the the level of stress, you assign such tasks to such operator. But also, I guess there are some different way to assign the task depending on the stress. What do you have some I don't know, some ideas in order to make the better assignments depending on the stress? You see what I mean?
You mean when the team leader is stressed, or when the workers are stressed?
No, I mean where the operator is in a quite mid-level of stress, for example, probably the assignment has to be done differently than if he is very stressful or with no stress. So,
yep. I mean, everything depends on how stress actually evolve when giving job to people. And this is why I call my model a simple model, because in real life, people don't always react the same way to stress. So I believe there is some kind of a management formation, or at least knowledge you need to have to either know your workers know how they react to stress, because there are constructive and destructive stress. I mean, if you stress someone too much, they end up being able to do nothing. If people have nothing to do, are the least stressed people on earth, they won't get motivation to work. The thing is, there is some kind of misconception on how stress work today, because in the 50s, 1950s, we said that the more stressed someone is, the more productive he is at some extent. But the only research to back that was research done on mice, and more recent research just see that we used these old studies to encourage aggressive management, to push people beyond their limits, and justify themselves. Yes, this is positive stress, this is positive reinforcement. So yes, the notion on how people react to task load and how their stress evolve is kind of complex. But yeah, in my case, this was the most simple possible. If someone is at a low stress, you can give him a task, be sure it will end up well. If someone is in a medium level of stress, you are taking a bet. And at high level of stress, you shouldn't be assigning tasks to someone who is already overloaded.
Yeah, so probably that's why the leader can have, I would say, can have a guiding tool in terms of virtual companion in order to guide him to do the better assignment or something like that. I don't know, but probably it can be helpful also for the team leader.
Yeah. Actually, my whole PhD is groundwork into developing such assistant. We want to know what are the requirements to create such a companion. Either this is very passive monitoring, as I did, either this is a more a tool with more affordance, a tool with more control and maybe more abstraction for the team leader.
Yeah. And concerning your model, the operator model, in terms of the function of the stress, so your model, if I understand, is managing the failure, yes, the failure probability depending on the stress.
Exactly.
But you mentioned just before that, in fact, in some situations, people consider that the stress can be useful also to have a better performance. So probably the time to do the task depend also on the level of the stress. Probably a bell curve, something like that. I don't know. So if you put this model, this elaborated model, do you think the results could be slightly different, or the management?
I'm not sure it would be that much different, because the participants acting like the team leaders were 100% conscious of this stress working, and I believe a manager of an actual team in a real world context would have some managing background, or at least formation, and would know the equivalent of this stress function for real people working in their domains. And depending on how much you want to focus on task reliability, I mean, the task have not only have to be succeeded, but have to be completely perfectly. This error function, which again in my model is very simple, I believe team leaders must know the error function of their team. Because yes, of course, it would be different. You would assign tasks differently, but I'm not sure this would actually change the result, because my participants always focused the zone where the performance was the best. And some of them actually told me they preferred having all the operator at medium stress and just wait for the medium stress to turn green to give a task, knowing there wouldn't be that much stress at the end, and still performing quite well. So yeah, with a more realistic curve, we would have a different strategy in assigning tasks, but I don't believe we would have a very different result in the performance improvement in sharing such status. I mean, because the only thing that you have to know is to understand the status.
Yeah, sure. And have you had the opportunity to discuss with the psychologist on your work, to have some feedback from them?
Only informal talk with psychologists, friends of mine, and it was them who told me that there is not that high of a consensus on how people perform depending on their stress. So that's why, instead of having a complex and hardly justified and supported model, I went with this simple model, assuming it is simple, assuming it is not that realistic. And yeah, we could have done really better. This is why in my last slides I explained that the operator model could be extended and developed into a more realistic one.
And concerning it's not related to the privacy, but it could be. If you measure the mental state or the level, the stress level of the team leader itself, himself, and do you think that if he can have an overview of his own, the feedback of his own level of stress, his behavior could be different in terms of assignment and so on?
Maybe I didn't actually thought it that way. The thing is that most of my participants were a bit concerned at the end of the experiment, saying I was so stressed at some point. And actually, they are the only human in this experiment, so it's completely okay to be stressed. And they have to perform the best as they can. Of course, they have like this weight on them. So at least in my experiment, the team leader was the most stressed. And I have thought of giving a self-feedback on the leader stress, but I didn't want my participant to focus on that rather than the operator's stress. I honestly think it could go both ways. Maybe different, maybe depending on the personality, on the character of each people. I know that if I personally had feedback on my own stress, I would freak out. But I believe people like having feedback on their own metabolism. People who like running have these smart watches giving them their heart rate. So I believe this could both improve and hinders team leaders' efficiency. So yeah, when developing new team mechanism, you shouldn't impose a feedback on the team leaders inner status, let's say stress, but it could be highly considered sharing it at least. Proposing, asking to the team leader, do you want to see your own stress? Do you want to see if you need a break? Because this is good taking care of the full team, but if the team leader is not at 100%, this could hinder the whole teamwork. So yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think it should be based on voluntary. It would be voluntarily to have a self-feedback.
Yeah, and of course, when you work in a team, you as a team leader, as a leader, you don't only work with your operators, but the operators are working together also. So exactly. they exchange between them. So the feedback are more complex, and you can also think about controlling your own feedback if you can.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this was the point of the first experiment. It is important to share status between same levels of workers, and it showed that yes, at least to know if someone needs help somewhere in the workspace. So this is definitely an advantage of sharing status between equal levels members.
Yep. And do you think it could be easy or difficult to do a real scale experiments with real operators to validate?
Actually, no. Let's define complicated. I had an exact I had an applicative context which exactly depicts my experimental platform. My experimental platform is inspired of a cybersecurity operating center, a SOC, where a manager gets alerts and have to sort the alerts among his data analysts. And this is exactly what we are doing here. We are taking tasks we receive and we just give it back. The only thing that would have gone a bit more is that at the end, the data analysts have to do a report to the manager instead, and then for the manager to get to the technical manager and then get to the infrastructure manager. So it would have just been at a bigger scale. But yeah, a PhD colleague of mine was working with cyber defense teams, and we had this project into instead of having my own experimental XR settings, just bring XR to their operating centers. And in fact, some of them were already using AR tools to augment their own station. So adding some information to their head-up display wouldn't have been such an issue. So yeah, we could have gone there. It was just organizational nightmare. We were never available at the same time, and I even ended up going into Australia for a year. During the time frame it could have been possible to use this cybersecurity context.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I think I have to stop now. I thank you for our exchange, and I let the floor to the president.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now I think Mrs. Klinger, she's again
Yes.
with us.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, I'm sorry. Somehow my connection broke down. I'm not connecting via video anymore because of these connection issues. But you saw me, I think, earlier in the presentation, and then so that's ahead of just forward. Also, congratulations to a very interesting presentation on very important issues. And so I enjoyed listening and also reading your manuscript, your dissertation. It's very, very interesting. Yeah. So now a few people have asked questions that I go along with 100%. So I will not ask the same questions again. One question that is still a lot on my mind, or there are two questions actually, but the first one is games. So I guess nowadays there are quite a few, let's say, MMO games, multiplayer games, where if I watch my own kids, they are able to deal with all kinds of collaborators, and they see their status. Of course, this is not VR. This is on a flat monitor where they see, let's say, in World of Warcraft, complicated situations. Can we learn from that, or is that so different from VR that we have to reconsider everything? For instance, they have lives. Of course, this is not biosensors, but they have mana, so you can see how, let's say, endangered somebody is. Have you taken that into account for your own
yes,
designs? I assume so. You're the generation to do that.
Of course. I mean, I'm a gamer myself, so of course I had influence coming from the gaming industry. And on top of that, I have game design master degree from the University of Quebec. So again, that influenced me a lot. But even going further than that, I really enjoy the new gaming industry in VR settings because, as you can see on this slide, I actually reference to the floating menus we have in the game Echo. I reckon it was not supported anymore. The free version was not supported anymore. But yeah, I really have big influences from VR gaming. Because first, I am a gamer myself. Second, I have this analyzing eyesight on gaming, on gameplay breaks, and on information displays. So yeah. I 100% inspired my first steps of research on gaming, and then looking at what literature has to bring more than what is only used in gaming.
But looking at your, let's say, the status information, just in the very beginning already, figure 3.1, etc., these seem to be very big panels that you put on somebody's head. can that, I don't think, do they need to be so huge for, I haven't seen that in games in that size, because then all of your screen space is already gone.
Yep. Actually, on this screen, it doesn't depict quite quite well. If we go on the other status, yes, it actually has to be this big because with VR headsets, it's quite hard to read. On a classical desktop computer screen, we can read quite fine. But the thing is, the size of the panel, which are actually billboards, are always facing the camera and gets larger when the target gets farther. So in your own hand side, they are quite always the same size, and they always have the same orientation. But yeah, it was kind of an issue because you kind of lose some space having those indicators. That's why the conclusion of my work, and mostly the third step of it, is that we shouldn't show everything. We should only show what's relevant. And yeah, my research work was to create the new groundwork to identify what is actually important, what is relevant to see all the time, what is relevant to only see in certain circumstances. And if we stay on this slide, the history of the task someone done, or even how well they're done in a future that in more than the 10 minutes, we don't really care for it, at least in continuous interactions. Of course, when they are debating long-term teamwork, it could be interesting to know how someone went through in the last weeks or something like that. But in a continuous interaction, which is a minute or even second precise, we shouldn't take so much screen space. But yeah, I really wanted to be as exhaustive as possible to identify those issues.
So it seems to me, I mean, the conclusion is the quality of the hardware is still an issue for VR. You can't quite show as a larger field of view as you can show on a monitor. And so maybe this needs to be investigated more when the hardware gets better and closer to monitors. Also, maybe then people in games seem to configure their screen space individually, and so that might be interesting input. Do they really want to see things in this or that way? And yeah, and I guess then also safety is an issue that in games, yeah, I mean, if you lose, then so that's not so critical an issue as if you're working with pilots. So maybe you need more guarantees that things will be noticed.
I mean, this is a really good input.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a very good input because actually participants told me that they would be really eager to personalize their screen space. The thing is, some participants told me directly in the eyes, I would just remove the stress feedback, and I didn't want them. I didn't want to tell them, yes, but you are the participant who scored the lowest. So I'm not sure I would advise the scientific community that, yes, you can dispose of the most important indicators. So I just kept it quite simple in the manuscript, saying that it can be interesting to investigate into how to resize, redimension, reorganize information on the screen space. But for my experiment, to keep it at most, to keep a good environment between passages, I have like the future and current information on top, the past information on one side, and the inner status on another side. And this is my way of sorting things, and of course, it would be good to help to let the manager or the team leader to organize something to its own convenience. But for experimental purposes, I had a fixed thing. But yeah, this is a very good way of investigating further into my subject.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then I have a different question. This is about the second paper, and maybe then also the third one. In the first one, you were completely VR. In the second one, you say you need an MR, or like this is where the leader tasks to people. That's what I mean. So the next one.
Yes.
And there you say now you need an AR setting, but then you simulate AR in a VR situation because you don't want to measure a real sort of a human, or you don't want to, you want avatars and not have all these players to play the operators' roles. Now, why do you go for AR in the first place? Wasn't the overall context that this is all meant to be in settings where people cannot really be physically together? So you will always have this telepresence VR setting, and the operator or the leader will certainly be not at. Will this leader be in the factory him or herself? So what's the reason to go AR there?
Oh, you mean going into AR in the first experiment?
Yeah, and why not stay in VR?
I mean, I myself stayed in VR, but I wanted to address as much immersive technologies as possible. I mostly use VR for experimental purposes. This is very easy to set up in any kind of room, but when we have a workspace that will be used for, let's say, weeks or months for teamwork, an XR system can be implemented. As I was saying in the very beginning, we can have partially distributed teams with people at some point of the earth and others in a meeting room. So this is doable. I know, I've acknowledged that. I checked the literature. XR systems are deployable, are implementable. I just wanted to keep it quite simple for me to implement, and VR is very permissive. This is just that when I developed VR things, I just keep in mind that can I implement this thing in AR too? This was my only mantra all along my developments. If I make something in VR, can I also deploy it in AR? Because, of course, here we use a virtual panel of a MATB2, but it could be machines operated in a big factory, and people being distant one from each other, maybe one on the start of the production line, one on the end, and they are communicating, and having such status can help understand what the problem with the issue on the production line.
But wouldn't that be, like Dennis was saying, when you are showing the avatar right now as a red or blue, a little sort of robot, would that be then a live video stream from the operators in front of their machines? But then where is AR coming in for the leader who is assigning the tasks?
The AR for the one who is asking tasks comes in having the feedback on their team. Of course, they could have a simple 2D display with like tables and stats and everything. But as you were saying, with gaming, the display space gets really quickly filled, and with AR, VR, and most globally XR, you have 360 degrees of freedom, and you can sort of do space a bit differently.
Okay, so it just seems to me that you were striving for too much, that staying in your VR environment would have been perfect, and your results are very interesting, and you're doing things in a VR environment after all anyway. And I think that's a very good setting. In a similar way, then you're saying people will use little cubes and throw them into, I think they're virtual cubes, and they throw them into baskets in front of the, or next to the, here, to the virtual workers. Why use cubes and not just have a little, something like a tablet in front of, or a laptop in front of you, and use a spreadsheet, or where you might even have more information about the difficulty of tasks, etc. Why having this gesture is fun, but maybe it's also adding to the sort of load, the cognitive load of people.
Yeah, of course, and I would 100% agree with you. The thing is that I had to run 1 hour experiment with participants, and I wanted them to have a bit of entertaining. So in this current GIF, we can see me just drop the cubes in the baskets, but you can throw them, and you can even throw the cubes directly at the operators. So you're a bit like in a basketball game, saying, hey, you, get this task. So yeah, I wanted my participant not to be bored at mid-run of the experiment, because it was actually 4 times 10-minute scenarios with questionnaires in between. This was really, really serious, and I wanted to add a bit of fun in my experiment. And of course, this is not how I suggest assigning tasks from a team leader to a team of operators. Of course, a classic desktop setting or even a tablet is more than enough. Yes, this part, it was just me trying to bring a bit of joy in my experimental setting.
That's very interesting, because in a sense you're opening a completely new line of research there. With this task, with having fun, is that better? Like, do the leaders perform better, or can they do this for a longer time? So it's opening. I don't want to start this now, but it's really opening a very new question. And in another experiment, you could just compare this to a more traditional way of assigning tasks.
Yeah, actually, yes, I could have. This will be a more interaction-oriented research, which I would have done happily. But yeah, choices, and I really wanted to focus on the status feedback. And yeah, this was like a bit fun part of my job. This was a break. How to assign tasks? Let's throw cubes in baskets.
Yeah, and since it's constant across your different variants, it's fine. It shouldn't confuse the system, the experiment too much. Thank you. I think these are my questions I still had.
Thank you very much for your input.
Thank you. And now we move on locally with Mr. Kova.
Thank you, Mrs. President. Thomas, thank you for this presentation. I'm glad to be here for this day, special day. We discussed a lot but during your PhD, but still I've got very short questions.
Of course.
The first one is maybe you just to rely on slides on 39, so one of your last slides. 39.
39, sorry, didn't hear it.
Yeah,
Great.
about these representations. I just wanted to know whether one or several of your participants expressed some kind of a misunderstanding of these indicators. Did you have in the qualitative, in the interview, say, I don't really understand about these colors and so on? So what was their position? They just played the game, they just did things, but did you get some feedback in this sense?
I got some participants who were not quite understanding well how the Halo worked, but this questioning was entirely answered during the training session before the actual experiment. So every participant that began the 4 trials of the experiment have spent 15 minutes, 20, to train, and I made sure everyone understood what the tested future stress meant, what the future stress is, what will be the condition. So it might have been a bit confusing for some of them, but most participants got it quite well. I mean, I had like 10 slides to explain the participant gradually what was going on. And I did not feel reticence past 10 minutes.
Okay, so we can consider your panel was in phase. I mean, just really use the indicators as you meant to be used. Okay, that's a short question. Go back to the 35. I've got a detail that I'm not sure about that. I should have seen that before. But could you tell me, confirm me that when the avatar is, when the operator is not doing anything, he or she has joint legs, and as soon as he got a task, he just opens the legs? Because that's a trick you didn't mention, so that it would be invisible indicators, so that something is happening with the avatars.
Yeah. I mean, they have kind of two states. Either they are resting, either they are working. When they are resting, I gave them some idling animations. Sometimes they just spread the legs. Sometimes they do kind of T-pose to get their muscle back.
Your example, as soon as you put some task, then you just open the legs. And
because this is a bit of a
correlated to the number of tasks to be done. So
this is a bit of an old video. Now I have an interpolation between positions in the animation and positions in the pre-recorded movement I personally performed. I performed 20 iterations of each task. So this is 80 animations that are played back when you give a task to an operator. And yeah, they have idle animations. Now they are interpolation between their skeleton animation and phantom animation. That's what I call them.
But my question was about the whether you wanted to have some kind of non-verbal, but some kind of a hidden or some kind of indirect indicator for the team leader himself beyond your own indicators, so that the attitude of the avatar could give extra information about the...
Actually, some participants asked myself, are the idle animation showing indirectly their stress level? I could have done that. I didn't have think of that before a participant told me during the experiment. But it would be a good one. But I thus would have had to sort my idling animations, which were randomly played, to which one shows a lower stress level and which one shows a high fatigue or stress in the operators. So I prefer to keep it simple and say when they are resting, all the animation are the same. Are meaning the same.
I come back to something. I guess it was mentioned by Frédéric for a few minutes ago. Could you give me a few indication about what you think about the stress of the leader? I mean, did you experiment some kind of a really stressed people doing the task? No, I'm not speaking about the operators. And did it have some impact on the way, on the strategy, so that should go straight to the easiest, or did you check anything about that? I don't remember. Maybe you told that. I'm sorry to make you repeat if you did.
It's completely okay. I did not measure the stress of the participants, but what I could witness is that, and again, the only party that is actually stressed in this experiment is the participant. Virtual workers are just lines of code. And of course, this is a stressful situation for the team leader because they keep having cubes thrown on the table, and this is done on purpose. I wanted a stressful situation for the participant.
Yeah, so that's because my hidden question was, or my hidden comment was, all of us know that the real stress is for the boss, and not for the actors, you know.
I wouldn't say that far. I would just say that, the manager also have his cup of tea when dealing with stress.
One last question. So Gudrun just, she stole me the game question, so I will finish with another one. I was wondering whether this is some kind of an open question, so I would like to get your insights, your vision about that. I was thinking that when you got a team which is stable in a game or in any kind of factory, of course you may have these kind of indicators about the stress or fatigue or whatever physiological or mental state of operators you could add for the instantaneous, or not instantaneous, for the current game, for the current set, but also the leader could be highly influenced by the knowledge of the guy he has been working with for 10 past missions, 10 past sets, so that you could think about some kind of a fragile operator or resilient operator, which is not exactly the stress you measure, because this is in situation, real time.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
do you think it would be possible to add some kind of a profiles, getting out of the history of the cooperation on years or months, or and this applied? What is your thinking about that? Potentially relying on what you know about the gaming itself. So when you play with a guy, and you have been playing with him or her for weeks,
for years,
so or for years, you know when the stress will be absorbed, will he or she will be resilient. So what do you think about this extra dimension on a more historical, long-term indication?
Yeah, for me, this is, I like to say that, a non-trivial questioning. What I mean by that is that everyone's different, or at least we have several different personalities among people. And of course, if you know someone, and if we stay in gaming, you know that someone, you know that partner who is really fun to play with, but is not that good in a game, you could tag him, just don't die. And in the same way, we could have operators that are known to become stressed more easily, but at some extent they work better with stress. So this brings a lot of questions I've obviously thought about. And that's why I didn't go into an assistant directly, because there is no general way of understanding the status of someone. So my basic analysis is just low stress, medium stress, high stress, to keep it the simplest possible. Because, as you said, there are different kinds of personalities. And when I was talking about resizing, dimensioning the display space, of course, a team leader should be able to also tag some people in the information identification part of a status panel. And actually, in my experiments, I didn't mention it during the presentation because this was not really meaningful in the 45 minutes, but all my operators have a speed attribute, which means that the faster an operator, and again, in my simple model, a simple operator, fast operators work faster and get stressed faster, and the slow operator works slower but gets stressed slower. So we actually had people explaining their strategy, focusing on finding the slow and fast operators and giving a lot of easy tasks to the fast operators, so it would do it very fast, very efficiently, and it would be in rest time very, very, very fast, and giving all the tasks to slow operators, which was kind of their low effort part of the task assignment. They were really fast into finding which is fast, which is slow, and adapting their strategy on that. Not all participants did that, but maybe half or a third of them took the speed of operator into consideration, and the speed would be a placeholder for reliability in a video game, or I don't know, in an operating block, having a surgeon or an infirmary having a tag double check on their head would mean that you shouldn't be too confident in those ones, or this is a mentor to avoid authority biases. So yeah, of course, we should be able to label. We should be able to label people with some tags or anything. And this is why I didn't end up my PhD with an automated companion, because those are questions that are still related to human perception and human cognition. And as for now, I didn't review, maybe, and I might have not reviewed enough literature into how people consider the others, but that's obviously a next step in this direction.
Okay, thank you very much. So that was my next question. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you. I may now have a few questions before going to the supervising team. So thanks a lot for your presentation. Thanks for inviting me here. And so you gave us several interesting contributions and exploring different way of sharing user status. And I have to point out your manuscript was quite easy to read. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I think the position of your research is clear in the field covered, and it's particularly well presented in state-of-the-art section, and you did the same in your presentation. I have a question about if you did a link with the team leader management skill, of if you plan to do something like that. This, I think, can influence experience depending on how they react to information about individual team members. I mean, people who are used to manage team won't react the same way.
Exactly.
Did you take this variable into account or not?
I took it into account and asked participants if they had managing background before performing my experiments. What I've noticed is, sadly, the few ones who had team management background were the ones who scored the lowest, because they were stressing the operator at most. And even when I insisted, my model is a simple one, just keep the operators the least stressed possible if you want to reach a good performance. And they were like, no, if my people are not stressed, they won't work. So they were kind of closed to the fact that these old models, that the more you stress someone, the more effective it is, are still stick in some people with team management background. This is why I tend to kind of insist, but not that much, on the fact that we have to change team management practices, formations, because people with this background might be biased with either old conceptions or either are not just used to the new tools that allows us to perform better or perform at least differently.
Okay. You display a panel with a lot of indicators and maybe you can think through other one and have bigger panel. So you tell us you will have to make choice, but I also wonder if you don't need to aggregate them, not to overall all the display. Moreover, we speak about a little bit of that during the question already. Maybe not all of them are needed, and maybe can do a generalization in the same sense we do it in geographic generalization.
Yep.
I mean, depending on scale, you present the information, but not the same way.
Exactly.
Did you imagine something like that in your?
Yeah, we actually investigated it, and the issue there is that depending on the participant profile, the most relevant information are not the same for everyone. So I had participants focusing. Let's get back a bit on the status. I had participants focusing all their strategy on the score feedback. They just gave one task, see if they get a good score out of it, let them rest a bit, give another task, and focused only mostly on score and success indication. But some others were really interested with the task queue. They would just be sure that everyone has between 1 and 3 tasks in their queue, and just be sure to let them rest a bit. So I could not find unrelevant information, but what I could find is that we had different profiles, and depending on the profiles, some information are more relevant than others. And this is why it is important to investigate how to resize, dispose of some information panels.
It's not only a question of disposal, it's a question of how to present information, and maybe not all of them, or an aggregation is it's a way to put different information together to give only one information that represents all of them, but at different scale.
Yeah.
So it's not presenting all of it, but as you say, but just a part of it to have a bigger picture.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't get this question in this sense. Yeah. Again, on the objective of creating a copilot, a companion to help you make better decisions, all of the status would be hidden, abstracted, and aggregated behind this companion. And this companion would only show up alarms like someone needs help, someone is doing nothing and needs to work. And I believe this would be, first, less intrusive, like we were speaking in the privacy issue, but it would also be more confusing for the team leader, having less, far less information in their site, in their field of view. So yeah, of course, we should aggregate everything into more abstracted indication, like just a written status. Someone is doing well, someone needs help, someone is kind of slacking, maybe check on him. But yeah, the objective being behind this first groundwork research is, of course, to end up with something like this. Less intrusive, less straightforward, more straightforward, and obviously more understandable, or at least you understand it faster.
As you say, it can help for the privacy issue because stress could be only one indicator, gathering personal information that you don't share.
And of course, I might not be really hard on it during my presentation, but every time I talk about stress, this is a placeholder for any kind of inner status. This could have been fatigue, cognitive workload, this could have been frustration or anything. This is like a well-being indicator, because of course, you don't have only one internal measure inside you. You don't have one feeling, you don't have one brain wave or anything. So the inner status is already aggregated under the stress label. The stress label for scientists is very pushing, confusing, because this is not how stress works. But I felt bad proposing to my participants, hey, let's talk about inner status of someone. It was easier and even more for the one who did not have any managing background to just say, hey, this guy is stressed. The least is stressed, the best is work. Go on with that definition. I know that this is not actual stress, but let's go on with this placeholder label.
Well, as we already mentioned, we are focusing a little bit on the team leader stress. Yeah. And you say you didn't measure it, but I would be, what do you think? Do you think if you measure it, the stress level could increase or decrease, knowing the state of this team? Do you think it will lower the stress level, or because it's doing a good work, or no?
I mean, again, sadly it would depend on the personality, because I could witness participants who completely freaked out when every operator was highly stressed, and other were completely calm. All the operators were completely resting, and they are just waiting. No one knows what before assigning new tasks. So as I could witness different managing strategies, I believe that in the team leaders, there would have different ways of interpreting such feedback. So obviously, research on that is important and would be impactful to continue research on this way. I couldn't tell you, being sure, if it would increase or reduce the stress of a team leader having such feedback. What I can tell you is on the first experiment, let's get back to this scene. In the first experiment, actually, people were more reassured, let's say least stressed, when they had the information panel on their wrist, because they were not spending all their time turning their back, checking on their collaborator or anything, and they were pretty confident with just raising their wrist, checking if everything's all right, and if anything was turning red, then they had to make the effort of turning their head, checking for help needs or anything. So I believe in the first experiment it reduced the stress of everyone, but in the team management settings, I couldn't tell, being sure.
I have a last question. Your metric here, final one, it's team performance.
Yes.
And that you're aiming to optimize. Could you have used a different metrics such as overall minimization of stress with a little reduction of performance concerning the task? Do you think could also be used as a metric in your work?
I mean, the well-being of operators was another metric. It was a bit hard to analyze. We also measured the amount of time an operator was working in front of the amount of time the experiment took. We didn't have really significant differences between the conditions. The only thing we might have measured would have been the cumulative stress put on operators, but at this point I'm not sure it would have meant something, or it would have been tricky to analyze and having concrete conclusions on virtual operators following a simple model being stressed or not. Such conclusion might not have been able to be transposed to real world settings. So I didn't want to emphasize too much on the operator stress, because this was just, as I was saying in the very beginning, measuring it and gathering it, measuring and defining it was not in the scope of my work. I really wanted to focus on how to present it, but it could be interesting to oppose different participant strategies that I've kind of identified. There are few generic strategies you can find in my manuscript, described from participant feedback and even my own observations. In some strategies where people are already focusing on operator stress, which tends to lead to the highest performance, which is the team score on this graph. Obviously, if you take 15 minutes and just wait every operator to reach 0 in terms of stress before giving in another task, you will reach a perfect score. So this is why I've opposed this to the trial duration, and so that only for maybe 2 or 3 participants out of the 24, their trial duration were not even significantly longer, but they spend 2 or 3 minutes more than the others, and their score, their actual performance was not that better. So I tried a lot of different measures, and the most concrete one was always the team score, which is calculated based. The score depends on the stress, so indirectly we kind of measure how the stress impacted the teamwork. But again, this is doable because I have a simple model, I control everything, and in real world scenarios, we would have new limitations. I mean, this is what I will do during my postdoc contract starting in September, applying everything of it on industrial lines and changing lines productions.
Well, thank you. So now I give the floor to the supervising team. Maybe you can start, Paul.
Thomas, thank you for a very nice presentation.
Thank you very much.
I would, the question is how well did you think VR supported the simulated AR? And I guess, can you talk about what it did well and where you didn't think it supported it as well as it possibly could, and that needs to be investigated?
Not sure to get the question in the right angle you want me to answer it, but VR was the thing I was most comfortable with implementing, and I've done a bit of AR before. So when designing anything in VR, I always kept in mind, is it transposable to AR? To, again, keep the whole extended reality continuum as the application field of my research. Of course, VR is very simple. VR brings simplicity in experimentation, in deployment, but of course, let's say in car industry, they already have XR settings for people all around the world working together and having either VR immersion or AR augmentation on site. And if we take the Halo, before implementing it, I made sure that the literature have found ways to recreate the outline of the head to virtually create things behind their heads. And the same goes for any other indicator, the notion of transparency and everything. This is quite easy with VR headset offering video see-through, so you can create artifacts in front of things or behind things with that, and with classical optical see-through AR. You are not able to superpose things. So this might be the trickiest thing, but I always kept in mind this has to be extendable to AR. So even if my project uses Steam VR, even if my project is in a full virtual environment, the tool is extendable easily, and the research outcomes can be applied, of course, to the whole XR field. Again, with some deployment, not limitations, challenges. I mean, this has been done. This is doable. I just don't want it to spend too much time on engineering issues rather than scientific reasoning and investigations.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Thomas. And being an academic, personal interest in the field of obviously stress, many tasks, and managing remote teams from Australia to France. So I'm obviously intimately familiar with the work, but the question for me was, for you personally, what was the most surprising or unexpected result that you found across your work, and why in particular was that unexpected or surprising?
The most unexpected thing, it might be when I end up knowing that people would prefer having a graph for the stress feedback, but they would perform significantly higher with just a colored number. So the thing that brings the best team performance is the exact same thing people don't like. So this was a first surprising, second a bit confusing, and third, after realization and a step back on my state of the art and everything, people never said you had to have symbolism or literacy, literal presentation of information. And few papers support the idea that having both advantages of it would lead to better acceptance and efficiency of the indications. And I believe that with that result, I kind of proved it again, that preference and efficiency, I mean, visual preference and efficiency are not coming from the same elements. So this is very important, presenting information with different modalities. Like here, it's all visual, but textual and graphical presentation of the same information, I believe, are important to be to provide, at least. I mean, in the next experiment, this is why I compare 3 to 5 different numbers of colors, because I wanted to know if it was really a written percentage number which was important, or if it was just a question of precision. Because when you are in the medium level of stress, you don't know if you are close to be overcharged, or if a few seconds of break will bring you to a low stress level. At least with the intermediary levels, you kind of know more where you are. So I still believe that providing an actual value when you have it is important. But yeah, for user acceptance, I believe symbols still are preferred and at least accepted easier. And I didn't run long-run experiments like some reviewers suggested me when I was publishing papers. Did I run experiments on weeks or even months? And I believe that yes, over months, the wow effect of XR would pass, and people would just prefer having numbers, small numbers, somewhere fixed in their head-up display, so they don't have to spend too much cognitive time thinking about it. And yeah, so this was maybe the most surprising thing I've saw from results. And in fine, eventually it became a good observation and a new interpretation on the field, on the research. I'm not sure I answered the question quite well, but.
No, that's right. I was just curious from your own perspective and kind of retrospective review of kind of everything that you've gone through, what you found interesting. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
We can go on, Thierry.
Thank you. I think it's okay. So Thomas, thank you very much today for this defense and the presentation and all the answers you gave to everybody. I have just a little question for the end, but I just say some comments first. So you are the last of my PhD students that had to face COVID, and it was very, very difficult, especially because you had to go to Australia, and you had to fight your way to go to Australia, and it was difficult. So I'm very happy that you succeeded, and that you made your way through all these difficulties and administrative difficulties. And so thanks to the work you conducted with Bruce and James, you had very interesting results for our community, so that's great, so congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So I want also to thank all the members of the committee, so especially the reviewers who spent a lot of time to review, for the examiner, for the president. And I was very happy to work with James and Bruce. It was the first co-tutel of IMT Atlantic with UniSA, so it's quite important that it's a success. So we're very happy. And yes, and what I wanted to say also is that I want to thank Crossing, because I think Crossing helps a lot to make it work.
Yep.
And they hosted you when you were in Adelaide. So many thanks to Jean-Philippe, who also made it easy for James to come to the defense. It was good. And yes, and so my last advice is that you have to stay aware, because to be aware is very important.
Yeah, we have to stay aware.
I have only one small question. So there has been many difficulties. It was not so easy to achieve the thing. So would you make it again, know that it's not so easy?
Yeah, obviously, yes. I would make it very differently, but I would do the exact same. I would take on the exact same research subject because I was invested deeply in the subject since the very beginning. Now, what I would do differently is that I might start working on my Visa application day 1 instead of day 2. I would maybe work at Pfizer a bit before to avoid the COVID situation. But no, I would do the PhD the same. I might tweak some things in my experimentations, but the red line, the main path I followed, I believe I would have done the same because, like I said, the ultimate objectives of this kind of research is creating some kind of a companion, helping people to work together, helping team leaders to manage their team. And this is a very important thing today. We have to work together and more. And I believe this research is very important. I would do it again. If I can go back in time, I would not do a second PhD tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Cédric, you can lead.
Thanks. I will have no question, and I think I will be really quick. So first of all, I also want to congratulate you for the very clear presentation. I think it gives a very comprehensive overview of all the work you achieved during these 3 years. So I was not at IMT Atlantic at the beginning of your PhD, and so I also want to thank Thierry for inviting me to take part in the supervision. I think it was a very interesting topic and a great opportunity to collaborate with our Australian colleagues. So thanks Bruce and James for this collaboration. Yeah, as Thierry mentioned, I think during these 3 years, it was not always easy, especially with COVID. But I think doing a PhD is never easy.
Yeah.
So at the end, you finally make it. So I also want to congratulate you for that.
Thank you very much. I'm a bit late, but it's finished.
Well, so thank you all for your question and comments. So now the jury will go for the deliberation.
Thank you very much.
No, Gudrun, Denis and
Yes.
Frédéric, you have to join us on the other WebEx meeting. We
Yes.
will be
Yeah,
there in 2 minutes.
I'll try
Right.
get there in a minute or in a second, I hope. I'll
Okay.
leave this meeting.
Okay, perfect. Je ne l'ai pas préparé. Ah bah oui, je le lirai, bien sûr, mais j'ai oublié de le préparer. Vous pouvez rester si vous voulez. Hein. Non, alors, ouais, pour ceux qui ne parlent pas très bien anglais, le jury va délibérer dans la salle de réunion du département info et ils reviennent pour savoir si je suis docteur ou pas. C'est dans le bureau de Thierry au final? Ça marche. Bah, je vais voir ça avec mes parents tout de suite. D'accord. Oui, je la lis en anglais, ça va tout le monde?
Bien sûr. Tu peux le faire 2 fois.
Très bien. Je vais le faire en anglais. Je pose juste ça et je vais voir dehors du coup. Qu'est-ce qu'ils font?
visually easier? Okay, fine. So, Mr. Rinner? Ah. So, the jury thinks that your presentation was very clear, pedagogical and dynamic, and you show us you are able to conduct research work and be involved in it. We all appreciate the presentation, clear and convincing, with a support with your good communication abilities. The presented slides were well designed, and you put your manuscript. We appreciate the way you answer the question with honesty, with a larger vision of your published work. So for all these reasons, we unanimously award you PhD degree in Cotitel from EMT Atlantic and University of Australia and Computer Science. So now you can read the sermon.
Thank you, everyone. And as the tradition wants, I will now take an oath to testify that now that I am a doctor, I will conduct science respectfully. In the presence of my peers, with the completion of my doctorate in computer science and in my quest of knowledge, I have carried out demanding research, demonstrated intellectual rigor, ethical reflection, and respect of the principle of research integrity. As I pursue my professional career, whatever the chosen field, I pledge to the greatest of my ability to continue to maintain integrity in my relationship to knowledge, in my methods, and in my results. I would like to thank you. I would like to thank every one of you. I don't know where to begin. I didn't plan any acknowledgements but I would first thank all my advisory panel who followed me throughout my whole PhD, who showed me, or helped me to find the way that did not work in my place, but they really helped me sort my ideas and get a straight path into doing concrete research and impactful research. So thank you, Cherry, Gilles, thank you, Bruce, thank you, James, thank you, Cedric. Really appreciate your supervision throughout the years. I would also like to thank my family for their support throughout all along my PhD from the very beginning, even before starting. They knew that I wanted to be a researcher since I was a child, which is quite uncommon. But hey, I've made it. I'm a doctor. I would also like to thank my friends, which is kind of my second family, who also supported me throughout this hard and long period of time. They heard me rant a lot about my PhD, and some of them actually told me they actually discovered what I was doing today, because I was complaining a lot, but I wasn't sharing that much. So thank you very much, my friends. And I also wanted to make a special thanks to Philippe Austin. And I will do this in French, so it'll be easier. Merci Philippe, parce que grâce à toi, en troisième, j'ai fait un stage qui pouvait paraître anodin, mais je suis allé à l'INRIA. Tu m'as fait découvrir des équipes de recherche qui faisaient un travail magique, parce que pour moi, c'était de la magie à cette époque-là. J'ai toujours su, de par mes oncles, que je voulais faire de la science, mais grâce à toi, je sais que j'ai su à ce moment-là que ça se dirigeait vers la réalité virtuelle. Aujourd'hui, c'est quelque chose de plus large, c'est la XR, mais c'est grâce à toi que j'ai eu cette vocation, que j'ai eu mes premiers contacts dans le domaine, et bah, sans toi, je ne serais pas là aujourd'hui. Ça, c'est indéniable. Donc, merci beaucoup, Philippe. Puis je vais garder mon dernier remerciement à tous les membres du jury aujourd'hui qui ont pu venir aujourd'hui ou qui ont pu nous rejoindre en visio pour leurs questions très pertinentes, pour leur écoute très attentive. Et encore une fois, je vous remercie de m'accorder ce titre de docteur en informatique. Sorry, I could have done that in English. I'm really thankful to the jury because you were very helpful. You understood and you were paying a lot of attention of my presentation and in my work. And I'm really glad you chose to name me Doctor of Computer Science today. And you won't regret it. And I hope we will work soon together again. Oh, je veux bien. Thank you, James, very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. It hurts when I do this. I'm now part of it. That means a lot. That really means a lot. I'm really glad you understood.
So unfortunately, you cannot come to the events now.
Yeah, we have a small party. Let's not talk that too much, but we have a small party in the Department of Computer Science meeting room, and I'd be glad to see you there. You can come for a few minutes. It's completely okay. I'm really glad you all came here today. Thank you very much.
Okay, so goodbye from my side and have a lot of fun. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Congratulations, Thomas.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Congratulations from me as well. Bye-bye.
Nice
Enjoy
to see
the
you,
rest
Dennis.
of the day. Bye-bye.